Welcome back. Now, yesterday, the government announced a multi-billion euro package to stimulate the economy and protect jobs here. However, respected voices in the business community say it's not enough and will not prevent firms from going to the wall, and have warned the government that now is not the time to be frugal.
To discuss further, we're joined now by Tánaiste and Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment, Leo Varadkar. Good morning to you, Tánaiste.
Morning,
Thank you
Tánaiste.
for joining us on the show today. Now, it's no surprise that the July stimulus package is dominating the headlines, and there's over 50 measures there, so there's an awful lot to get through. But first of all, can you clarify something for us? How much is it actually costing? Because the Minister for Social Protection, Heather Humphreys, was on with Ivan Yates yesterday. She mentioned €20 billion. It's also been cited as a €5 billion and a €7 billion package. So how much does it cost? How are we going to pay it back?
OK, so what we announced yesterday is €5.2 billion, but as well as that, there's €2 billion in loans for business. So if you add that in, you get 7. But this isn't the only thing we're doing. We've started to try to protect people in the economy since March, like the pandemic unemployment payment, like the wage subsidy scheme. If you add that all in, you get to quite close to 15 billion. And then in October in the budget we'll probably do some more. But what's it all about? It's about helping businesses to stay open if they're already open, helping people get back to work, and then for people who won't be able to go back to their old jobs for whatever reason, about 80,000 opportunities around training, education, apprenticeships, enterprise start grants, all of those things. So that's really what it's all about. Obviously we need to keep the virus under control, but provided we do that, the priority has to be to stimulate the economy, get people back to work.
In terms of business, Tánaiste, two things that we'd like to pick up on. A lot of industry people are saying that, you're giving access now to loans, to cheaper loans, etc. But a lot of people are saying it's grants that businesses need. A lot of small businesses in particular are terrified. They're already heavily in debt. They don't want to go any further down that road, even though the loans will be cheaper. And also the VAT rate. So maybe you tackle the loans first.
OK, so it's both. So most businesses won't have to pay commercial rates for 6 months. That's a lot of money saved for businesses. Businesses that are reopening or had their turnover hit by 25% will get a thing we call the restart grant. That'll be between 4,000 and 25,000. That's cash in hand to get the business going again. As well as that, there's the wage subsidy scheme. So businesses that were badly hit by the pandemic will have part of their payroll covered. So all of that is cash. The VAT going down will benefit retail businesses in particular, but also pubs and restaurants. And then there's access to loans as well, because most businesses don't want to take on debt, and I totally understand that. But some will, because some may actually want to expand, for example, over the next year or two. And we're hoping some can do that. And also, there are businesses that have debt already, and that debt's about to expire, but they can't afford to pay off the loan, and this will allow them to roll over that debt, but at a much lower interest rate.
But Tánaiste, we've seen ourselves over the past few months through the Virgin Media Ireland Backing Business campaign just how difficult it is for businesses around the country to get back on their feet again, not only to reopen, but to stay open. Do you think enough has been allocated to the grants portion of these measures? Because SME Recovery Ireland suggests today that actually the balance was incorrect between loans and grants. And how readily available and how quickly are they going to be available for people to apply for these?
Well, we'd anticipate the loans to be available in the next couple of weeks, certainly August or September. The restart grant is already being paid. The commercial rates, the fact you don't have to pay it, that's already in place. The VAT cut will kick in. I can't remember the exact date. I think it's September it kicks in. Runs for 6 months from September until February. The Stay and Save initiative, encouraging people to spend money in our hotels, in our restaurants, to take that a weekend away if they can afford to in the winter period. That'll kick in from October. So this is all stuff that's going to be implemented quickly, because we have a budget in October and we can do more potentially in October. But these are the things that can happen quickly. So there's 500 million, for example, going to schools, public transport, re-wetting bogs, footpaths, lots of things like that. And that's all work that will create jobs over the summer period. Now, I know any one sector, any one lobbyist is going to say there isn't enough for my sector. And that's what they're paid to do and paid to say. We as a government have to listen to what everyone wants and then put together a targeted package that is affordable for the taxpayer.
Before we move on to the Stay and Save initiative, just to clarify the VAT issue, the hospitality sector in particular are wondering why didn't you help them out a little bit more. But also in terms of us, the consumers, will we see that saving passed on, or is it aimed more at businesses trying to improve their margins, etc.? But will we see a saving?
First of all, there's a lot in for the hospitality sector. No commercial rates for 6 months. Wages being subsidised all the way through to spring, compared to Northern Ireland, where that's going to stop in October, for example. And as well as that, a restart grant of up to 25,000. And say, for example, you're running a hotel. You didn't used to qualify for that grant because you had more than 50 employees. We're now opening that up to any business that has up to 250 employees. So, all those things are there. And the VAT cut will actually benefit hotels, well, not so much hotels, but certainly restaurants and pubs, because it applies to alcohol as well. We decided to cut the other VAT rate, which is the 23% VAT rate, mainly because we wanted to do something to help out the retail sector. So that is, your furniture shops, your shop selling white goods, computers. So, I can understand the tourist industry wanted everything for their sector. We had to be fair. And we also had to make sure that it was within confines, because this is borrowed money, within confines that we'll be able to afford in the long term.
So, Tánaiste, can we ask you about the tax rebate plan? Staycation seems to be the word of the summer. It sounds to me a little bit clunky, because you're using an app, you're getting receipts, and then you're going to claim the tax back next year. Why not go down the route of vouchers, like other countries have done?
Well, for two reasons, really. Vouchers can be clunky too. You'd have to administer all that, potentially post them out to any number of households and individuals. That's not cheap. We don't actually have a register of everyone who lives in the country, by the way. So we're not one of those countries. So lots of people would get them, lots of people wouldn't. Some people would get two. Not saying it's impossible, but say it would be simple. It certainly wouldn't be simple. But the main idea behind our idea, which is where you claim the money back, is to encourage people who have a bit of money to spend a bit more. So the real gain, for example, if you get a voucher, you might use it and you might spend a bit more. You might get your €100 voucher and maybe spend 120 or 130. This idea is a bit different. It's to encourage people to spend much more than that.
If you don't go away, can you claim it back closer to home? You don't have. You can spend it in your town or in your county, and it's open to anyone who pays income tax or USC. So it's millions of people will be able to use this, and anyone who spends more than €25. The maximum is $6.25. So it really is open to everyone. And one thing we know at the moment about the economy is a lot of people are suffering, lost their jobs, their incomes are down. There's actually about 2 million people whose incomes haven't gone down. And when we look at what's happening, they're actually saving a lot of money at the moment because it's very hard to spend, and even some people are kind of embarrassed to spend. And what we're saying to them is, here's an incentive to encourage you to spend money in our local economy, and that will get some of the people who've lost their jobs back to work. Sure, but we're talking about spending money, we're talking about people getting back to work here for the last number of minutes. There's a sizable portion of the population who are not going to be able to go back to work, and I'm talking about teachers and parents if the schools don't reopen in September. Now, you yourself yesterday said that it would be a shame and a terrible event if we couldn't get the schools back reopening. So obviously that's the way you're thinking, but is there a comprehensive plan? And if there is, why hasn't it been communicated to the public?
Well, among the most important things to get back are childcare and schools. And, childcare is going well. We were a bit worried about that, but many have reopened and many will reopen as the year goes on. In terms of schools, the Taoiseach, Minister of Education Norma Foley and Minister Chief Madigan will be in the Department of Education today. They'll be in a position to update parents on that. It's going well. I don't want to say 100% just in case something goes wrong, but certainly talking to the people who've been working on the plan, I'm very encouraged that schools will open for all children, all students.
But
at the end of August.
As parents ourselves, Tánaiste, and most of our audience would be parents, they're looking for reassurance, because we're 5 weeks out and plans have to be put in place in terms of each family, when you talk about childcare, etc. We need to know as parents that not only is it just going to open, but is it going to be safe for the kids? How is it going to work? Are there going to be face masks? Is there going to be sanitisers in each classroom? Are the classes split? When do we get that information?
Certainly in advance of children going back to school. And I appreciate parents need that information. They want that information, and we'll have that for them before the kids go back. And we have an advantage in that we have learned from a lot of countries that have already opened their schools. And one of the things that is good is that we know that there haven't been major outbreaks in schools. So, it's actually one of the safer things to do is to reopen schools. And it's really important that happens because, kids have lost 3-4 months of their education. That's recoverable.
Yeah.
But if it went on for much longer, I'm not sure
what we hear parents saying in Ireland is that other countries did it, but other countries don't have the class sizes that we do. Just quite simply, our infrastructure doesn't sustain the idea of social distancing. We don't have the room for the kids.
Well, some of them do have class sizes similar to ours, actually.
But not all of them do.
Not all. But if you take, for example, Scotland, which isn't that different to Ireland, has decided to go back without social distancing. Now, that's not what I'm saying we're going to do, but it is a reflection of the fact that, children are not high risk when it comes to this virus. The social distancing needs to be between the adult and the children. And for example, what we've seen in other sectors, like for example in the restaurant sector, which I know is not the same as schools by any means, but what we've done there, for example, is keeping tables 1 metre apart. So, there will be practical solutions. Same goes for childcare. Nobody can expect 3-year-olds to social distance.
Yeah.
They're not expected to. So we came up with alternative solutions, and that's the space we're in.
Tánaiste, we're hearing reports that some private schools around the country have been in touch with parents and discussed the measures that they're going to take in place and absolutely reassure them that children will be going back to school. So will it be a case that some children may go back and others may not?
No, as far as I'm concerned, all children are going back. Okay. There's no way you could have some going back and not others. That's not to say there mightn't be isolated problems in particular schools.
But that's the aim, is to get them all back.
But if that's happening, I'm not particularly aware of that happening. That's that's principals and school boards in those schools being proactive, and it is important that principals and school boards are proactive about this, and not just the private schools.
Well, we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming in, Tánaiste.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
We're back after this break.